Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, everyone, to the first online Affirmed Woman session by Affirmed Hearts, which is founded by myself, Sabotage. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, and we would love for you to welcome as many that you can in your time, on your timeline, your friends, and those that you know will aid this session and will benefit from it. We've got so much in store, and I am so pleased to have with me Lisa Ajua, a dear sister and friend, and we're looking forward to what this session is going to do for those that are going to stay tuned. So stay tuned with us from now to the end. I promise you we do have some goodies. I also want to show you what we have in store, which is also an ebook workbook, which is definitely going to be available and is currently available once you also book the online link. And again, we are looking forward to a wonderful time with you all. So please share, and we will get started. Lisa, how are you feeling for this session? Addressing the self-defeating habit of self-sabotage. Wow, what a mouthful. But it's definitely relevant. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I think it's one of those topics, like you said, that's so needed. And it's one that I love talking about because I've experienced it. So to know that it's something that, I think you said that a few people in the beginning were saying that it's something that's so necessary. I think you may not come out and say I struggle with it, but it's something that we can all relate to in one way or the other. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it turns out because there's a lot to share, but we'll go with as the Holy Spirit leads.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm Sarah Ashagan, founder of Affirmed Heart. And what is Affirmed Heart? It's basically a mental wellness, education and empowering platform, as well as advocacy. And it's all about helping God's people to be able to not just nurture and excel within, but also to be educated and, of course, be empowered along the way. And this is called an Affirmed Woman session because it's being able to draw out the heart of a woman and help her to be able to thrive and overcome any situations that she's going through internally to walk affirmed as God has called her to. And so, yes, that is a bit about what this mission is. And I am not just only the founder, I'm also a purpose coach. I'm a minister of God. And also I've, by God's grace, educated to master's level in the area of mental health. And I won't bore you with the title, the details, but just know it's a mission that God has put on my heart. And no matter what I do, the heart always rings home and true to what God has called me to do. And so, as I said, it's about empowering and educating, but of course, with God in our midst with it as well. So yes, you will have both, contents about mental wellness, mental health, but also have faith as well rooted in, because again, I am a woman of faith. And of course, there's nothing that I can do without God. And I believe the same for you as well. And I will let Lisa introduce herself. This is the third time that we are doing a session, and it's been a blessing to be able to draw on both the aspects biblically, as well as and with qualifications and education, and being able to balance all of those together. But Lisa here is a qualified counselor, minister of God, and also a teacher of the word. But I'll let you, Lisa, share with us more on what you do as well. The stage is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that you started introducing and then you stopped. But yeah, basically you said it. I'm a qualified counselor, minister of the gospel. I love everything God and the Bible. I'm a writer of truth, an inspirational, motivational speaker, an author, and the founder of a women's ministry called Empowered United Women. And that's basically me in a nutshell. And I love also bridging the gap between personal development and faith. I find it to be very important. It's overlooked at times, but there are many links that you can connect. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
basically it.
Great, thank you. So for those that are joining us on the YouTube and those on Facebook, if you've not pressed the shared button, what are you waiting for? I mean, we've not started just because we're warming you up. And again, the session is going to be not just empowering, but educating. And if there's anything that you feel that you already know, that's good. And we're not here to come as if, oh, we know it all, but
Yeah.
we're here to aid those on a journey. This is a new year. We all have been saying it, we all know it, but there is that habit that is hidden in the heart that I know God is saying has to be addressed and no longer dressed up with fancy words and things. And so we are looking forward to diving into that. And we're also looking forward to actually helping you to utilize questions and things that you may already know, but you may overlook it, or even you may not have heard certain things, and it definitely will bless you. Many people here have something to do, something to achieve, and I know that this session is definitely going to help us, including myself. Even as we have been preparing for the session, there are times that the self sabotage forms will show up in different ways,
Mhm.
and God has made sure this is something that is showing up. And that's the thing with whatever you need to do. It's good to hear when God is calling your attention to it as well. But I won't bore everyone with so much details. I know that you are live because you definitely want to get started in the session. And so again, it's all about addressing the self-defeating habit of self-sabotage. Why self-defeating? Why not just say self-sabotage? Well, because it comes in different forms and in different ways, and everyone is different. Everyone's personality, everyone's lifestyle, everyone's work is different. It will show up in a way that sometimes you may not even know that you are doing this thing. And so I could share more, and I will share more, but I definitely want Lisa to kind of kickstart us off into a place of what self-sabotaging is, sorry, and definitely, if you already know how, of course, one can address it, and definitely the tools and the means that you can use on the journey of being aware of it, but most importantly, avoiding dwelling in that thing. Over to you, Lisa.
Wow, that was an amazing introduction. I feel like you've taken my notes and you've just run with it. But thank you so, so much for this awesome privilege to share again with you. I don't take it lightly at all. So, on the different platforms, welcome everybody. I hope that what we share this evening will be a blessing and encouragement to you, because a lot of time and prayer has gone into this and preparation. So, yeah. But before we actually go into it, I want you to just take 1 minute as I'm talking to kind of reflect on what your life would look like if you weren't struggling in self-sabotaging ways. So, where a life with no fear, a life where nothing holds you back, a life where you're able to pursue your dreams. Just think about how your life would look on the other side of you sabotaging. Because I think sometimes what we tend to do is we become so fixated in thinking that this is it, there's nothing more for me, this is just how the story goes. But I want you to imagine and envision yourself looking beyond the now. So looking at yourself, having crossed over, overcoming the self-sabotaging, and just living the life that you deserve. So take a minute just to reflect on that, because there's no point of coming to share with you if you don't see yourself overcoming. That's the whole point of these webinars, to be able to support you and give you the tips and the tools to be able to overcome what it is that we are addressing. And in today's one, we are addressing self-sabotaging. And so we have some slides here which I'm going to present. and I hope you'll be able to see it. Okay, so today's topic is addressing self sabotage. And so, just like an introduction, self sabotage can cause harm to a person. It is crippling coping mechanism that can cause people to do the opposite of what will bring them results. So I want us to start with some reflective points before we go into it. Can you identify with this and no longer want to be held back by self-sabotaging ways? Are you ready to reach your full potential, soar, and do better in life? Would you like to get to the root of these behaviors along with discussing tools and strategies to overcome this? Do you want to see in depth what has been holding you back? And so if you've answered yes to any of those questions, then we hope that this will be an experience that will leave you motivated, empowered, and equipped to be able to help you on your journey because we're at the beginning of 2024. So if you're able to apply all these for the year ahead, it will do you great service to be able to be the best you, to be able to fulfill what you've been called to do here on earth. And yeah, I just really hope that it encourages you. And so moving on, I want us to look at the defeating habits. It's one thing to look at self sabotage and, oh, yeah, you might say you can relate to it. You can say that it's something that you've gone through or currently going through. But I want us to break it down because there are causes of such habits. The first one, which can affect your low self esteem. Individuals with low self esteem may engage in self defeating. Hold on, sorry. Yeah. Individuals with low self esteem may engage in self defeating habits as a result of negative self perceptions and lack of self worth. So, how do you see yourself in this moment? As I'm reading this to you, is this something that you can relate to? Is this something you're currently struggling in? Through what lens do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in the positive or in the negative? And I'm going to relate it to believers because we're all believers here, hopefully. If not all, then bear with us. But if you're a believer, do you believe what God says about you? Do you live the word that He speaks about you? Do you hold it and do you honor it? Do you speak over yourself? Is that the truth that you see about yourself? And if not, go back to God in prayer and with the tips and tools that we share with you, apply it and bring it all together. The next one, as a cause of such habits, is fear of failure. The fear of failure can occur, which can stop individuals stepping out of their comfort zone to achieve and do more. You allow the thoughts of fear defeat your steps. And then the next one is negative beliefs and thoughts. With this, the beliefs you have about yourself can contribute to the world around you. You can kind of like build your environment with the words that you speak. The Bible speaks of life and death are in the power of the tongue. So, how you see your life and the picture that you have for yourself is as a result of how you see yourself, how you speak, and how you act, also how you interact with other people. So, it will affect your thoughts, it will affect your words, your actions, and like I said, how you interact with people. So with self-sabotaging, it's not so much how it affects you, but as I'm going to go in and share about this, it also is about how it affects those around you. So it can affect you internally, and what you do and don't process internally will come out externally with how you address people, how you interact with them, how you speak. So then with the effects of such habits, there's stagnation. You're stuck in your negative ways, you're not moving forward, you're idle, and you're in comfort. This can lead to a sense of personal and lack of personal and professional growth, as well as strained relationships. When you have these defeating habits, it affects you as well as the people around you, causing strained relationships, detrimental interpersonal connections, and also missed opportunities. When you have self defeating habits, it can lead you to missing opportunities because your focus is so tainted, because your focus is through the lens of pain, because your focus is so limited. You've developed habits that kind of cross over into success and happiness. It limits you from receiving those because, as far as you're concerned, you don't deserve any of that. You sabotage your way up. You sabotage your way to the side, to the left, wherever you want to see it. And then lastly, negative impact on your mental health. Self-defeating habits can contribute to increased stress, anxiety, and even depression, impacting overall on your mental well-being. And another cause I actually want to add is past trauma. So when you have unprocessed and unhealed pain from your childhood, When you're seeing life through that lens, you're seeing life through your negative experiences. So if you don't allow yourself to heal from your past traumas will affect you more than you realize. Because what I find a lot of people is adults, even though you're an adult, some people have patterns that they developed because of their childhood. So maybe you may have had something said to you which was negative. Maybe let's say negative labels. Maybe people are bullying you. And so because you've not processed that pain, you've now come into adulthood and you've allowed yourself to live through the patterns. You're sabotaging your way through patterns, negative thinking, negative tainted view. And one thing I really want to encourage you today is, if there's anything that you take away from what I shared today, is heal from your childhood. Heal from the things that people have done to you, the things that people have said to you, the things that people have labeled you as. Heal from it. Even in your childhood, heal. Some people say, yeah, but that was my childhood. You realize that from how people speak and how people act, it's very telling who's going through pain and who is not. Everyone's going through something, maybe not from your childhood, but there's always something that someone is going through. There's always that constant need for healing. So far, I hope you've been able to take away something from that. So we're going to go on to the next slide. As much as, what do you call it? As much as it's important to look at the cause and effect, we also want to look at overcoming self-defeating habits. So number one, self-reflections, asking yourself questions, understanding the root cause and looking internally to let God heal you. Number two, seeking support, whether it be from friends or family, or if you feel like you don't have a close knit community, mental health professionals are there to support you. At least they don't know you. So they're coming in with a non judgmental approach to everything that you say in a confidential and safe space. And then the third one, positive habits. What negative habits do you have now? And how can you replace them with positive thoughts for healthy growth? Moving on. I want us, it's not so much just talking about self sabotaging, but I want us to also look at self sabotaging and fear. And I want to explain how the two interlink. So, self sabotaging refers to the unconscious or conscious actions and behaviors that hinder a person's progress or success. But fear, on the other hand, is an emotional response to a perceived threat, which can also manifest as a barrier to personal or professional growth. And the two coexist due to the fact that someone who sabotages can feel fear on the other side of what they're trying to come out of. So, for example, you can have fear because you're scared of growth. You can have fear because you're scared of what's going to come on the other side of that decision, on the other side of that life changing moment, on the other side of maybe you making new friends. Fear limits you and it cripples you. It doesn't want you to come out of your comfort. So the moment that you have a fear thought or something that is causing you fear, always ask yourself, where is it coming from? And why am I fearful of such things? Like I mentioned, the two can coexist due to the fact that in someone sabotaging, they can be fearful of what is on the other side of that decision, as I mentioned, that move, that thought, that execution. Fear is a barrier to your growth, and you can experience that when you sabotage. It looks so grand when people are looking at the future. It looks so grand when you're having to make decisions. It looks so grand when life happens and you find yourself in a rut and you don't know how to come out of it. So fear basically stops you from moving forward, making the important decisions, taking that promotion, taking the compliments of other people, celebrating good news about yourself. Fear literally stops all of that and it keeps you crippled. Self-sabotaging is so harmful because it's deep rooted. There are beliefs, insecurities, unprocessed pain, as I mentioned before, of childhood and more that can hinder you and make you sabotage in the most comfortable way. So then you're probably still asking, how do you then relate fear and self-sabotaging? So fear is a natural response. We all feel fear in one way or another, but it's what you do with that fear. By an excessiveness, it can paralyze an individual from experiencing and doing more. So it keeps you limited, it keeps you in comfort, it keeps you in all these thoughts and things that you've made yourself believe that you can't move forward because of A, B, and C. They are, so for example, you're stuck in your ways. like I said, you can't move forward. You don't want to take risks. You don't want to step out. Fear is literally standstill, idle, stagnant. Everything on the other side of your fear is what's avoiding you from stepping there. So some common fears that people may have: fear of failure. You don't want to fail, so you have a fear of it. So then you're not going to put your best foot forward to try new things. Rejection from other people. What if I do this and I get rejected? Fear of the unknown. As I mentioned before, on the other side of your fear is a life that you've not lived, are people that you've not met, are decisions you've not made. Fear of change and fear of success. Some people can say, how can you have fear of success? This happened to me, and it's something that God showed me. With fear of success, because you've been in one way for so long, you've had the same mindset for so long, you've lived the life you've lived for so long, you've done things the same way you know how for so long. When all of a sudden you know that God is calling you to more, or there's more on the other side of your yes, it cripples you, because that success involves growth. When you're sabotaging yourself and you're in fear, there's no growth there. So you're comfortable. But the moment that you allow yourself to release and allow God to use you more, there's a fear that comes. There's there's growth that comes, there's success that comes, there's meeting new people, new platforms, new opportunities. There are a lot of people who are fearful of moving forward because they're fearful of growth. How is this going to look like for me? Oh, I'm so comfortable in what I know. I don't know what's on the other side, but because I don't know, I'm just going to stay still. Because I don't know who I'm going to meet, I'm just going to stay still. Because I don't know what it's going to look like, I'm just going to stay still. So a lot of people find themselves being crippled by fear and don't move forward because of what they have envisioned themselves to look like in the future. So some people stay in fear for so long, crippled, thinking that this is all that they have for them, this is all that there is for them. But I want to encourage you that the fear that you have is not something that should limit you. You can have the fear, but still apply the principles of God. Like God says in the word, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and of sound mind. So if you see that you're not walking in love, power, of sound mind, ask God what has gone wrong. What have you let in? What have you allowed to become so comfortable in your life? What mindset do you need to shift? And so when God has called you to more, that alone can have a lot of wobbly moments. But if you never move, you will never experience what's on the other side. Because we haven't seen what's on the other side, we sabotage. Because there's no book that says, okay, when we go into January, February, March to December, this is what's going to look like. Because it's unknown, like I mentioned before, you stagnate yourself, you sabotage yourself. Opportunities come your way and you don't take them. People come your way with opportunities and you don't accept them, because as far as you're concerned, everything that you are and everything that you do, you're comfortable with it. You're in control, you make your own decisions, you do things the same way, in one way. You're not willing to change, you're not willing to learn new things, you're not willing to take risks. And that's where sabotage comes in, is just living in the known, doing the same thing, being stagnant, being fearful, and not addressing those fears but staying in it. And so it's important that when you address the root cause of self-sabotaging and fear, you can certainly work yourself through personal growth, through improved well-being and enhanced success throughout different areas of your life, because it all interlinks. So, for example, self-sabotaging within church, self-sabotaging within family, with my finances, with my workplace, with my marriage, with my relationship, it all interlinks, because you are the common denominator in every environment you find yourself in. And so if you're sabotaging yourself in one environment, it will definitely seep through to the other environments.
Lisa,
And
can I chime in and ask you whether
yeah.
you feel that it's possible for people that if they are, well, again, you said about self-sabotaging and just being stagnant, but when it is actually a balance of the fact that they can be moving in one area but then holding back in another area, is that still, would you still say that that person or individual is self-sabotaging, or would you just say because one area is progressing and the other area isn't, it's not the same thing, they're just refusing to do things differently? Because you were
Yeah.
talking about being comfortable and things like that, because being a mother or being a wife, having commitments, being in ministry and in other things that we do, whether it's work or just in general, would you say that just because maybe your home is thriving and things are going well in the home, and you know maybe you need to take action on something, but you're not taking action on it, whether that is also a way of sabotaging yourself? Can you answer?
That's a really good question. And I think one thing that God was showing me a few days ago was, we use terms like sabotaging and we use all these different labels on ourselves, but did Jesus self sabotage? Was
Mm.
Jesus fearful? I think it is so extreme because someone might say you're over spiritualizing things, but he wants us to prosper in all areas. And I strongly believe that if you're, prospering in one area is good, but what can happen with people like that is when they find themselves prospering in one area, they kind of settle thinking that because one area is good, the others will just play catch up. But in getting comfortable, you realize that you are just going to be thriving in one area. And what we want to address today is being able to thrive in all areas. Obviously, it may not all be at the same time because self-sabotaging looks different to different people. But one thing I would say is that you can thrive. Maybe, okay, for example, in one season, maybe God requires more of you in family and you're thriving there. But the other areas of your life are kind of like on the back bench. Not that you're not being successful there, but your focus in that season is to one area. And then in another area, he might give you two areas to juggle. In another area, three. So as you're seeing yourself thriving in one area, learn what you've learned in that area and kind of adapt it to the other areas so that you don't just find yourself succeeding in one area. I don't even know if I'm answering the question, but basically what I'm saying is that don't get comfortable thriving in one area that you overlook the other areas. Work on all and have, I don't believe in balance, but work on all and see yourself trying to put your best foot forward by applying the tips and tools to make sure that one area is thriving. Okay, I can kind of take a bit of focus off that and look at the other areas that aren't thriving. Why am I sabotaging in those areas? Why are they not thriving? What can I do to get myself to the area that is thriving and beyond? So you don't want to just get comfortable in one area thriving, if that makes sense.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So as we were talking about, hold on, let me see. Yeah. So what does self sabotaging look like? Procrastination, always putting things off, not doing it there and then. Negative self talk. How do you talk to yourself? What do you say to yourself? What have you believed about yourself? Perfectionism, wanting everything to be perfect before you put your best foot forward and start something. There are some people who, if everything is not layered in the same in one way, or everything doesn't look right, or everything doesn't sound right to them, they will not start. So time is going, and because of perfectionism, they are not starting, but no one's perfect. It's best to start something and improve as you go along than to not start at all. And avoidance of doing things, avoidance of meeting new people, avoidance of taking new job prospects, building your skills, undermining your efforts. Self sabotaging is so harmful because it's deep rooted. And with it being deep rooted, it stops you from doing all that God has called you to be and do. Imagine God on judgment day, God will ask you, so how did you use your time here on earth? Oh God, I tried, but self-sabotaging got in the way and I didn't actually do anything. I couldn't do anything because of self-sabotaging. He's going to look at you like, I gave you all that I placed in you and you didn't do it because you put yourself first. You put yourself before others in your gift. You didn't allow me to work on you. You didn't bring those areas to me that I would want to work on and address. You allowed yourself to take your life into your own hands and you self sabotaged. So I want us to be so intentional to look at the areas that we sabotage ourselves in. For some people, maybe work prospects, some marriage, some with their children, some with friends, some in, let's say, colleagues at work, some with promotions, whatever that it is, look at what you can relate to and what you can address and see what we're saying here, what you can take away. And then we'll go on from there. So, Sarah, I'm not seeing the slides, sorry. I don't know what's happened. Yes. So, as I was saying before, self sabotaging is deep rooted. There are beliefs, insecurities, and unprocessed pain and more that can hinder you and keep you in a locked cage. If I want locked cage, if I want to explain it, it's basically you keep yourself in a room locked up mentally, and because you're caged mentally, externally, you're not producing the fruit of what God has called you to do. And I find that when I speak to some people, they kind of mask self-sabotaging in, oh, I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God to move. I'm waiting on this. It's not the right time. But sometimes it's that God is waiting on you to just give your yes. Just give your yes to him and he will lead the way. That's why it says faith. We need faith. Faith without works is dead. You can't say because of self-sabotaging, you're not going to overcome it and work on what God has called you to do. You're not going to say that another year has come. Or you're going to, some people actually say another year has come, I'm just going to go with the flow. But I don't want us to be people who will say that and stay stagnant. I don't want us to be people who know that we're going through this area and are staying in it. So you're going to come through this webinar again. You're going to come and view what's being said, take the notes and say what you have to say to contribute or whatever. But then you're going to go and still be the same. And I think it's very detrimental when you know an area that you're struggling with and you do nothing about it. So I hope that these tips and tools will help you. But there is a relationship between self-sabotaging and fear, which I want us to look at deeper. The fear you feel triggers you to self-sabotage. As I mentioned before, the fear keeps you thinking that you must protect yourself. You procrastinate in fear and you worry and stay in comfort. You don't act and you fear growth. It sounds amusing, but I was once there. You know, when you've done something for so long in a particular way, you're someone that you can take long to adapt to change. You can take long to adapt to growth. And that's why I say make everything a prayer point. If you find yourself going through sabotaging ways, if you find yourself going through fear, make everything a prayer point. And when you don't act, that means fear has won. You allow the fear to grow. As far as you're concerned, staying in comfort seems easier, even if there's nothing positive happening. And as sad as it is, it's true for many people. Many people stay in it because at the end of the day, if you don't know what's ahead, what's the point? If you don't know how things are going to work out for you, what's the point? If you don't know how that business is going to look, what's the point? And I think sometimes on the other side of the yes, it might look scary, but just give God your yes. God needs your yes. And he's not going to force himself on you. He's a perfect gentleman. So it's literally just basic, going in with prayer points in the areas that you're struggling with, finding scriptures, and allowing God to just pray you through. So now that we've spoken about the cause and effect and the relationship between self-sabotaging and fear, I want us to look at how we can actually overcome self-sabotaging and fear. So, to address something for change to come is a very important thing. It shows that you want to change, it shows that you can relate to it, and it's something that you're happy to change. There has to be an awareness, first of all, of what you even think needs changing within you. So, the fact that you've recognized that you have self sabotaging behaviors, the fact that you've recognized you can acknowledge your underlying fears, the fact that you've recognized that there are some things that you're not happy with mentally, then you know that, okay, this is something I need to overcome. And what does that look like? First of all, give yourself self compassion. Cultivate this to challenge yourself to question those negative thoughts, that self talk. Where has it come from? Where has that perfectionism come from? Why am I reducing what can help me? Why am I not building on my skills? What are my behaviors showing me? Ask yourself those questions. I was saying to the woman of God, Sarah, I think it was a few weeks ago that, or I think it was to someone else, that we live in such a busy life. You know, we're always on the go, always doing things, planning things, executing things, that we struggle to sit with ourselves. We struggle to ask ourselves those hard questions. We struggle to take time out of our busy schedules to sit for a few minutes a day and ask, okay, so what went well in this area? What didn't go well in this area? How do I feel about this? How did this make me feel? What are my triggers? What are the underlying actions of the things that I say and do? We don't ask ourselves enough questions. And so we're literally running like a hamster on a wheel, just going day to day, without pausing to ask what exactly is going on internally. When you have something wrong with you physically, you go to the doctor because you know that the doctor will help you. But when you have something internally, first go to God and He'll give you the resources and the professionals to support you, community and family. So we shouldn't negate the fact that, okay, there's internal and there's external. Both go hand in hand because how someone is internally will show how they are externally. And so the second point I want us to look at when it comes to overcoming self sabotaging and fear, seeking support is so important. If you feel like you don't have support from family and friends, seek support from a therapist, maybe a coach, maybe a support network of people who are advocates, for example, like the woman of God, Sarah. Have the tools and strategies that you need to go to the underlying fears, to go to the underlying cycles of self sabotage and break them. Make it a thing that if 2024 you've realized that self sabotaging is your area to work on, make it a thing that every month you're going to do something towards that. Maybe in January, you're going to pick up journaling and try and maintain that for the year. Maybe in February, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to seek therapy. Maybe in March, you join a community group and just go on so that every month you're doing something towards that area you're struggling with. And the third point, which kind of links to what I just said, set realistic goals. Break down big goals into smaller goals, manageable steps. Step by step a day is important and it's good. It's better than no steps at all. Whatever that can alleviate your fear of failure and reduce the tendency to self sabotage, please do it. There are many resources out there. There are many things that you can do to help yourself. I say this all the time that we are in such a digital world where everything that you need is literally online, whether it's YouTube, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Google search, whatever that it is, everything that you need is online to support you. And so with all of that, I always say that you can say you have one area to work on, which is great. You can say you can relate to something, which is great. But what steps are you taking to overcome those areas? It's not enough to say, yes, I deal with this area. I'm dealing with this area. I'm struggling with this area. It's also important to say, let me take it a step further. What tips and tools can I use and apply in this area? And so I want us to now look at biblically in terms of the Bible. I know maybe not all of us are believers here, but it's important that we as believers use the word of God as our source. So when you're dealing with something like this biblically, it's important to pray and fast. Make God the focus of what you're going through. Make him the center of what you're going through. Take your worries to him. Take your struggles to him. Pray and fast over it. Study characters in the Bible who struggled in this area. Every character in the Bible had something. Maybe you may not have struggled with it in this season. Maybe in the next season, you're finding yourself struggling with it. So take these tips down anyway, because it might be something that you find yourself battling with later on in the year. Write down the lies you've believed about yourself and find the scriptures, the true scriptures about what that area says, and pray over yourself, speak it over yourself, and seek out who God says you are. I've also got here biblical tips and solutions. I used this scripture before, 2 Timothy 1:7. It said, God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and of sound mind. Fear robs you of what God has for you, especially if it's something that God has not given you. Make sure you take it back to God in prayer because it's something He's not giving you. So there's an access point that the devil has come in to bring that fear to cripple you. You then take it back to God and pray over yourself the scriptures. Pray, fast, have accountability, have a community of people who can encourage you. Fear stifles you, it causes you to withdraw. You stay bound in comfort. Again, as I was speaking before about the comfort zones, you disobey because you do not move. And you can even resent God for the fears that you have. And so, with all of that, three scriptures I want to add to 2 Timothy 1:7 that I shared. John 8:3-6. It says, he who the Son sets free is free indeed. You can be free from your self-sabotaging ways. Anything that's trying to limit you, anything that's telling you otherwise to what the word of God is saying, anything that's causing you to believe the falsehood of those things, there's freedom in Christ. Take all to God. He cares and he knows. He's concerned with every detail, even the mundane, he's concerned with it. But you have to be intentional to know that this is an area that I'm struggling with. This is what it looks like. This is what I need to do in it. I'm taking it up in prayer. God will help me and direct me in the right path. So the second scripture that I want us to look at is Matthew 11:28. It says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Self-sabotaging can cause you to be weary. It can cause you to live in an uncertainty. It can cause you to live in doubt, in fear. It can cripple you from moving forward. You see others are doing well and progressing. You may envy, you may look at them and question why it's not happening to me, but you're the one stifling your own progress because you're not moving. Because self-sabotaging, like I said, is an internal thing. So if you're not intentional to work on it, if you're not intentional to give it to God, if you're not intentional to allow Him to work on that area, you're gonna remain stagnant in it. And what I love is the fact that we are doing this webinar at the beginning of this year. So at least you've got the tips and tools going forward to be able to support you and encourage you so that you don't repeat the same habits of old up until last year, doing the same thing, thinking the same thing, staying in comfort, looking at others doing well and thriving, and you're just in the same spot because of comfort. And so the next scripture I want us to share is Psalms 139:23. David prayed this: Search me. That's a prayer point in itself. Search me, God, and know my heart. Search me. What is inside, even the blind spots? What's inside that I do not see? Okay, if the self sabotaging is there, where did it come from? How can I overcome this? What do I need to put in place? Search me, God, and know. Search me, God. Search me, God, and know my heart. Know my heart. Know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. It's so important that we go to God in prayer with everything. Is so important. And as we're wrapping up, I want us to look at people in the Bible. People in the Bible who also struggled. There was anxiety in the Bible. David was anxious. There was fear in the Bible. Moses was fearful. There was running away in the Bible. Jonah ran away. And the reason why I put this here is to show you that what you're feeling is not alien to you. People in the Bible who've gone ahead of us have struggled in these areas. Self sabotaging is one of those areas that, when you look at the underlying theme, is a self coping mechanism, which is very toxic. And it's one of those coping mechanisms that keeps you bound and limited. It doesn't allow you to move forward. So, again, as I've discussed throughout, fear and self sabotaging, they do coexist. There were a lot of people in the Bible who felt emotions, they felt things that God would not have called them to feel, but due to circumstance, they felt it. The same way we can go through things and feel things, the same way things can happen to us, disappointments from people, things not going our way, things that we've lost, people that we've lost. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. And so we kind of go through life wearing how we feel. We wear it. We treat others because of what we are wearing emotionally. Internally, we don't do enough work. We do more work externally than internally. And so me sharing that is showing you that people in the Bible also went through things. They also struggled. And if they've struggled and they overcame, we can as well overcome, And yeah, I want to actually share some pointers as well from a professional counseling standpoint in terms of tips and solutions. So I've given you the biblical tips and tools. Now I want us to look at when you seek counseling, or even if you don't and you hear these, apply them. Number one, identifying underlying patterns, self reflection, as I mentioned before, allowing you to reflect on your behavior, allowing you to seek out any patterns, any things that cause you to repeat the same cycle, exploring triggers that you have. This will help you to recognize the triggers that affect you in situations, fear of failure or low self esteem, and taking it further than that, when maybe someone says something to you and you react and you get angry, someone can look at that and say you overreacted in your anger, but why did you act that way? It's not that that person says something alone. It's your childhood. Maybe it's something that happened in your childhood. Maybe someone said something to you which is similar to what that person you got angry with said to you. Maybe labels that you were labeled. Maybe things that happen in your childhood triggers things within you in your adulthood that causes you to react a bit more than necessary, if that makes sense. And so when you look at your triggers, you'll be able to see where things come from. Why are you triggered when you see certain people? Why are you triggered when people mention childhood? Why are you triggered when people mention fathers? Why are you triggered when people mention mothers, siblings, etc., or the people who were your child caregivers when you were growing up? Another important one is challenging your negative beliefs. This will help you to look at where your thoughts came from and challenge them. I think, as I was saying before, a lot of us have things within that are going on internally, but we don't challenge them. We just say, this is just me. this is who I am. But I want you to take it on this year to challenge the things that you believe. Why do you believe what you believe? What is the core of it? Where did it come from? Why do you think that? Where did it come from? As I mentioned, who originated it? Why does it look like that to you? Why have you allowed it to linger for so long? And building your self-esteem in all this, building self-esteem is so important. The support that you have needs to be positive support to be able to build you up. But as I mentioned before, having self-compassion, affirmations, good community can all be towards building your self esteem. Even taking risks can build your confidence because you realize that on the other side of your yes, on the other side of your self sabotaging, there were ways that you were able to apply to be able to see a new you, a revamped you, a renewed you. Everything about you is progressive. You don't want to be someone that is stagnant all the time, just staying there and looking at others thriving and doing well. There's so much success that can happen for you on the other side of your yes if you believe it for yourself as much as you believe it for others. And like I said, celebrating your progress, encouraging a culture within you and externally to celebrate your wins, no matter how big or small. You could have like a gratitude jar on the side, and then you could have like a winning jar, the things that you've done in the month that count as wins to you. And at the end of the month, you read out all the wins that you have. These things may sound so basic to you, but when you start doing it, you realize that it helps you more than you realize because it's helping you to see that even with me having self sabotaging tendencies, there are still wins that I have. There are still progressive steps I'm taking. It's not going to happen overnight to eradicate all the self sabotaging, but at least everything that is a healthy tip and tool that can support you, please do take it. Fostering accountability partners, support from family and friends, as I mentioned before. They may not be able to give you counseling support because they're not counselors, but accountability. Maybe, for example, you've gone to a counseling session and you want to share what your counselor discussed with you, maybe not in so much detail, but maybe through that conversation with your counselor, there was something that involved accountability. And so you want to share it with someone to say, before my next counseling session, please keep me accountable to do this task. Please keep me accountable to do A, B, and C. So that by the time the next session comes, your accountability partner will see if you've done it. And then you can take all of that to your counseling session and then just continue with your sessions as you go on. But between your sessions, it's good to have accountability that can support you because, for example, some may have sessions weekly, fortnightly, once a month. The gap between your sessions can be quite big. So at least if you have something like a filler between your sessions, that will also help you. And encouraging self-care. How do you encourage self-care in your life? Do you go for walks? Do you do regular exercise? Do you have enough sleep? Do you take care of nutrition? Do you have leisure activities that can enhance your overall well-being? And lastly, to monitor your progress and adjust. Regular check-ins. So monitoring your progress could look differently for different people. You could have challenges, you could have accountability, you could have counseling, you could have community groups that you follow, anything that can cause you to have regular check ins with the area that you're working on. And in this area, we're talking about self sabotaging. So, with all that said, if there's anything I want you to take away from this, is that there's nothing that is too big or small for a prayer point. If this is an area that you find yourself struggling with, take it to God in prayer. Ask Him to help you. And then in the external, seek out professional support, seek out community groups. Because, like I said before, mentioning the Bible, there's nothing that we go through that's alien to just you. Everyone who's on this live has gone through self sabotaging, or they know people who've gone through it and want to give them the support. So never think that anything that you go through is solely based on just you and you going through it alone. Everyone has gone through it in one way or another. So I really hope that this encourages you and gets you thinking about the areas that you can improve in because it's something that we've all gone through. It's either you've gone through it, you're in it, or you may actually go into it. So that is what I would say. I think you're muted.
Thank you.
I was thinking, what?
Thank you. Wow, that was a
Oh,
lovely, wonderful session. If you agree, definitely comment below.
thank
It was
you.
very, very empowering to hear that. And the slides, of course, allowed us to read and follow
Mm,
along, and take notes. And of course, mental notes and physical notes. It was a lovely session. Thank you so much, Lisa,
same
for
here.
that. The practicality of what it is and how to address it, how it shows up, even the biblical references as well. And I've been putting some of the highlights of a ebook and workbook that's also available, because some of the things that's been shared today, and even more questioning that you can take back and just fill out on your own, journal promptings, and activities that you can do yourself, is definitely available in the workbook ebook. And again, we're all children of God, but sometimes I knew that this topic was a sensitive one.
Mm,
It was one that was like, how dare you talk about this? Or how dare you use this term? And it's even sometimes I was cringing myself, like, oh God, I don't
wow.
like that term,
Wow.
self-sabotage. It's just too much. Who wants to be affecting themselves? Because most times you always just say people
Yep.
are sabotaging us. And so the benefit of this is, anytime you think someone is sabotaging you, at least you understand the
Mm,
mentality that one may have when they're acting the way they may be acting, or showing up the way they're showing up, when you feel
okay.
that they're sabotaging. So as much as we've been empowered to know how to dictate it in our life, it's also something that's empowering us to understand why others do
Mhm,
it. And again, pray for them
mhm,
wherever they begin to do that. But I love the fact that you shared about the biblical example. And I want to just share one person that I've included in this ebook workbook. And actually, it's two women and one man. And I don't know, I think you may have mentioned one, but I've got Sol, I've got Sarah, and I've also got Michal, which is Sol's
mhm.
daughter.
That's
And so
good.
if you get the ebook, there's a brief um, point on there, but I could talk about my namesake Sarah, but actually I'm going to talk. Actually, maybe I should do that, and then I will highlight another one. The Bible tells us about. You've also broken down for us what it is to self-sabotage. We don't want to keep saying the term, but we
Mhm,
know whether we are not comfortable in stepping out, whether we are making decisions as well that will later affect us long term.
mhm.
So we might make a decision today and it will affect us
Yes.
long term. Also, we can be people that try to aim maybe too high and we miss the jump. That's a way
Mhm,
of also sabotaging yourself, because you want to do too much when you don't actually maybe have the means to, or you don't have the ability to, but your eyes is always on the prize that you may not even have prepared yourself to be able to attain. And so I say that to say, because it's a new year and we all have things, including myself, and there's times you just have to stop and pause and say, okay, all these things are coming to my mind, all these things are coming to my heart. Am I prepared? Do I have the time to
mm,
prepare myself to do these things? If I look at the timeline to get these things done, do I
yeah.
have that? Or do I just say I will do it, but I forget actually I've got other commitments that don't make sense? And then I end up not doing it. But again, talking about Sarah, my namesake, it's, well, I'll call her Sarai, because
Yes.
that was her name at the time, when she did some sabotage movements.
Oh my
And then God said, I'm
gosh.
changing your name. So
Mm,
when you actually realize that you have addressing this trait, God is changing your name, giving you a new name, a new
mm,
outlook, a newness
love
as well that comes to you. So I hope you receive that. But in Genesis 16, we can look at how she, out of fear, she doubted God's promise of a child and convinced Abraham to have a child with her maid Hagar. We all know the story here, but this caused a long-lasting conflict, yeah, and pain between Sarah and Hagar. And with the birth also of Ishmael
that.
playing a major role even in the creation of the Muslim religion today.
Mm,
So we can see that even Sarah having that fear of, or the doubt that, oh, is this thing gonna happen? Actually, let me do my own. Let me quickly go ahead of God.
yeah.
Let me put things in place.
Mhm,
Actually, caused a ripple effect, not just for that time, but even we are experiencing that quick decision
mhm,
that she ended up moving in because of fear. And I love the fact that you talked about fear being something that one functions in when they are sabotaging, because again,
yeah.
why would you sabotage if you're a person of faith? we won't do that. But yes, because we're humans and we are going through the process of different things of life, fear will creep in. And I'm really passionate to know that, yes, we can say it's fair and we can pray about fear. We can say, God, remove the fear. But I believe God is being more specific with us and saying, it's this part, it's this one, and it's this thing that is the fear that is still there. And so I say that to say, just as I shared about Sarah briefly, and it's even there, that, may the decisions that we have to make on a day-to-day basis be with patience. And I think coming out of any form of procrastination, self-doubt, low self-esteem, whatever it be, any sabotage or defeating things, or things or decisions that we will make that will later affect us, we have to be able to have more patience.
Yeah.
We have to be able to know that, okay, if I know I'm here for a purpose, God has given me a purpose. If I don't see anybody else living out their purpose, does that mean I am not going to wait on God? And if I do see people looking like they're living out on purpose, does that mean I need to make some decisions that will affect me negatively in the long run? So before we begin to make decisions in the things we want to do or achieve, definitely, even if God has said it, we have to make sure that we are not quick to sabotage it or affect it on the long run just because we're feeling a bit fearful or worried. And let's be honest, I myself, even earlier today was going through some moments and my husband was there encouraging me, and I realized that if I'm not still and prayerful, if I'm not still, and there's one thing to be physically still, doesn't mean you have to be walking around and busy doing something. You can be physically still, but your mind is running rampage. Your mind is doing all these other things that beyond you. And I think that's just what it's all about, addressing that part of you that you physically may look calm, but your mind has run to the safari desert and back. And in saying that, it's one of those things that,
She said desert. Sorry.
Yes, because you want a desert, there's no water, there's no life there. So you just run into places that's not giving you life or giving you any solution. So you have to take that moment to be patient, isn't it? And to just pray it out, as you did mention, and say, God, this that I'm noticing, I give it to you, and let there be a change. So I've shared one person.
Can I just add something to that? I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
And I love
definitely.
that you used her as an example, because as you were speaking, it took me back to the point I shared about it's one thing to have self-sabotage and fear, but also there's this thing of fear of growth and fear on the other side of your yes, fear of success. She was very old. She was like, oh, but how am I going to give birth? I'm old. So she automatically looked at the flesh, looked at her age, looked at, what all the odds that were against her. And she spoke with her mouth what could sabotage her situation. The same way with us, there might be people listening thinking that I'm too old for this, or how can God still use me, or is there life, is there hope? And I just want to encourage you that we are all blessed to have a Father in heaven who loves us so much and is patient. But at the same time, don't keep thinking that because of what you look like or your age that you're disqualified. And that's another thing, going back to self-sabotage, you disqualify yourself from reaping the benefits of joy, of goodness, of success, of growth, of being able to excel because you're so fixed in your ways. So that's a really good example to use. I love that.
No, thank you. And definitely, when you're just talking about what you shared, we have to look at the benefits of addressing. And in this ebook, I put a little quote that you can always remember to say, or just to think on. And it's basically, we have to boldly address the hidden habit of our hearts. And we have to be able to know that if we find ourselves in this procrastination or making decisions that will negatively affect us, whether we know we're doing it or not, we have to know that we can't wrap ourselves around fear of failure. We have to be ready to address things and not dress up in it. We don't need to dress ourselves up in these
I love
actions,
that.
because anything that we are doing is not about us, is it? It's about God.
Exactly.
And there's something else I can share here, that's also from the workbook, but it's also knowing that we definitely have to know. To see the things that cause what is happening. That when we even begin to make these choices, it's basically because we are afraid, as we've mentioned a few times,
Yeah.
but it's also knowing that you're either avoiding the challenge, you are in a place where you are saying, okay, I have to relearn. I've already learned so much, but do I have time to
That's it.
relearn and
That's
unlearn?
it.
As soon as you make the decision and say, do I even have time to do this? Boop, you're already sabotaging
Yeah.
yourself, because you're making a
Yeah.
decision to say, in the long run, it's not going to work. As soon as you say, do I even have time to even ask that? Will that person even be able to help me? Will they give me the answer that I need? Being afraid to ask for help. Because
Sorry.
there's one thing to ask for help without
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm hoping they give me this
Yeah.
solution when I ask for help. It's good to just say, I'm going to ask for help. I don't know what their response will be, but I will still do it. But if I begin to try and imagine, how will they help me? What is it they can do that I can't do myself? You're actually entertaining, the characteristics of, a defeated, mindset, really. But yeah, if you want to
I want to
continue.
ask you something based on what you just said. What then is what is the difference then between you thinking those negative thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
then it being self-sabotaging? How do we kind of differentiate both? Because I can have an off
Yeah.
thought as soon as something comes to me, but what then makes it self-sabotaging? I guess I want to throw that question to you.
Mm-hmm. So because the term, or really the function of one self-sabotaging, is to negatively affect a goal, to negatively do something that will bring out, it could even, yeah, I'll say negative. So if you're thinking negatively, yeah, for example, let's give a real life solution situation. If you are thinking of, okay, should I don't know, apply to this, I don't know, course, for example, I don't know,
Yeah.
and you know that this course will help you achieve XYZ, yeah. But before you're not applying to the course because you're beginning to think negatively. Oh, can I even get through to the first stage? Would I even be accepted? Or would I even be able to go through the term, or the months that they're telling me I need to? Would I even be able to complete payment? Do I even have all the money they're asking for? Or, you begin to think negatively of the goal that you're trying to achieve. So the negative thinking and the act of sabotaging is, you're actually not applying yourself. So as soon as you hold back from taking action, yes, you're in
Okay.
the zone of self-sabotage, because you've taken what you have been thinking into motion now. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's actually now making you rethink the plan that you say that you have.
That makes
And
sense.
if, for example, the course is going to start in February, and February 3rd, and we're here 30th of January, for example, let's make it as real as we can. And you've got to submit the application, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And you're spending time maybe just thinking and thinking. Today has gone, 31st has gone, first has gone. The second now of February now comes. You still haven't pressed. You probably even put everything on the system, for example, but you've not even pressed submit,
Yeah.
because you're still thinking, and thinking all the negatives of you just pressing submit and letting the reality
Yeah.
kick in. You get what I mean? As soon as that procrastination, comes into play, because you're of the negative thinking, yes, you've actually sabotaged your efforts to apply yourself, and to say that after 2nd of February, and months go by, it's now April. You now begin to start thinking, oh, what if I just have started? By
Yeah.
now I'll be halfway through. But no, you can't be halfway through, because you missed the date. And the one thing about life now is, maybe thank God that we have a lot more opportunities that are quite frequent. You can say, oh, I missed this day, I'll
Yeah.
go through the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
day. But, the life situations that we can go through from the date we said yes, compared to when we move it,
That's
procrastinate, and
true.
just move it forward. We don't know what life situation is
That's
going to
true.
meet us then.
That's true. That's so good.
So that's why, if we are taking action, we have to be intentional, as you did mention before, that we don't sabotage our growth, and even put more pressures and things on ourselves because we've missed a deadline for something, you know, that could
So
be have
good.
been done easily. So I just use that example just so it can be very practical
Yeah,
and a little bit more
very
visual.
practical.
But I don't know if it also it well, if it answers the question,
Yeah.
because that can be unconscious and conscious as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the conscious part of it is the negative talk. You know that you just keep having all
Yes.
these reasons, you
Yes.
keep just going through the motions of it. And unconscious could be the fact that actually you now use the term, oh, I forgot.
Mm,
You know, oh, I
I
forgot.
get you. Yeah. Mm.
And that's unconscious. So you can be like, oh, I didn't even know that was the time. So you know the day, but you don't know the time.
Mm.
So, oh, I forgot to check the time.
Mm. I agree. Yeah. I
It's
agree.
like, I agree.
But I think I want to, I'm extra like that. I want to take it a step further and look at something. This is just me going with my thoughts, but when it comes to self-sabotaging, someone can say, I do have those negative thoughts every now and again, but I don't allow them to take roots and for them to
Mm,
show up in my behavior. So is
okay.
that also self-sabotaging, or is self-sabotaging literally when you have that ongoing negative thought that keeps occurring in your behaviors and patterns that something is wrong, but you're just overlooking it? So it's more than one time. Because someone can say self-sabotaging is from the first thoughts. That's just
Mm-hmm,
sabotaging. But then someone can say, no, but then if I keep having that thought over and over again,
mm-hmm,
that's self-sabotaging
mm-hmm,
because then it becomes a cycle. So
mm-hmm,
are both right to say what they're saying, or would
mm,
you say that it happened? You can call it self-sabotaging after X amount of times of having the thoughts, or
mm.
how? I don't know if that makes sense. But
Yeah, I get what you mean. Is it based on like how many counts
yeah,
would it
to some
become the
degree,
term?
yeah,
Yeah, but I think because it is what it is, I guess as soon as you do it, you're already doing it. Do you get what I mean? It's like, yeah, we know it's a coping mechanism,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it doesn't mean how long have I been coping
Mhm,
for?
mhm.
It's like depression.
Mm.
How long have I been having depression for me to call it
Yes,
depression?
yes, yes.
As soon as you are going through the motions of these moods, it is really depression. It may just not be chronic depression. It may not be major
Yeah.
depression, but it's just on the early verge of it. And for it to, and I guess the thing about self-sabotaging, there's no term to say it is the worst case scenario, but it will show up in these
Great.
mental areas or mental decline. So as soon as your mental state begins to decline and you go down within 2 weeks, you will begin to sabotage yourself because you won't go to maybe work, or you won't communicate with people, you won't send that email, you won't plan, you won't maybe pray when you need to,
Mm,
or open the Bible when you
mm.
need to within those time frames, because you're now in the behavior of it. So I would definitely say there is no way that just because you think it, oh, it's not a behavior. No, no, no. Whatever you think is who we are. As soon as we think it will automatically shift our behavior.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we think behavior has to be so
Yeah.
outrageous for us to be. No, no, no. Behavior is, as soon as the thought comes to your mind, that is, you've already accustomed
Mm.
your mind, even your mood, to those words.
Love
So,
that.
and as soon as you think, oh, actually I'm thinking negative, actually I'm not going to do that, actually I'm going to procrastinate, you've just taken on the whole nature of that habit,
Mm.
and or that trait, um and you've just said, oh, it's just because it's this thing. But you know what? Because it's just this thing, then it's going to be easier for it to go to this one and this one. And then you yourself won't even know you're doing it because it's just so easily
Mm.
flowing. It's now going
So
to
good.
every other area of your
It's so
life and
good.
decisions. Then it actually becomes a way of thinking
So
that you
good.
will just think, oh, I just think negatively. Why am I always thinking negatively? Because when the first negative thought came in, or when the first time to, to take action, or to stop comparing, or to you didn't take hold of it and take hold of the Bible tells us to take hold of every thought, and we didn't take hold of it, so we left it and thought it's just a
Mm.
thought. I'm not going to see that person again, or I'm not going to do that again. But as soon as we move from that place, it's we are
Mm.
so it's now easy for us to just think that way, because the last time we did it, we didn't address it
Yeah.
and just grab it as a chokehold.
Mhm.
We just let it go, and then we say, the next person I meet, if they do something, okay, that will be the mindset I will have
Mm.
about them. The next time someone does this is the way I'm going to think. or the next time I want to do this, this is where I'm going to think about it, because the last time I thought that way, nothing really happened. I was okay. Do you get what I mean? And I
Yeah.
just think as humans, we're always waiting for something drastic
Mm,
to happen, for it to shake us.
mm,
But the thing is, you know, things are already shaking us, and we don't even know it, because when we find ourselves self-sabotaging, we're not happy. I don't know any happy person that self-sabotages themselves. No, it's you're in a
that's so
place of
good.
hurt.
Yeah.
You're in a place, you're hurt. You know, you don't. It's like, even when you have to make decisions, sometimes the decisions you have to make can be so worrisome that you even feel hurt, that, oh, do I have to think about this? Do I have to even, you know, I don't want to think about it.
Mm,
You know, I just want to escape this thought. I want to escape this thing,
mm,
um,
mm.
because it's so heavy for me. Again, because you're feeling that hurt, you're feeling that pain, you're feeling that drain. So you don't want to do it. And of course, because you don't want to do it, that's why it becomes that comfort, isn't it? Because we don't want to address the pain. And I think it's worse when you don't even know where the pain is coming from for you to
Yep.
address it.
That's the
So
worst.
the fact that we even put that thing about we have to pray,
Mm,
you know, because even as I'm just talking now, it's that thing of when we are praying, we're saying, God, can, you know, do this, use me, do this, and God's looking at you like, you know, if I do this, you're gonna actually procrastinate on that. You're actually not gonna move straight
that's true.
away. So we are praying the things we want because we see it. Um,
Yeah.
but we have to pray what God says and say, God, I see what you're saying.
Mm,
Help me to move
mm.
in it. Help me to have the patience. Help me to, you know, change and go through the changes I
Oh, I
need
love.
to. Because if we just hear what God tells us to do, or to who we're going to be, and we try to do it ourselves, we're definitely going to self-sabotage. That's why a lot of people always say, oh, I'm procrastinating on this thing I believe God told me to do. Yeah, that's
Mm,
because when he said it to you, you didn't even say, God, in this
mm.
process of time, you know, help me to be able
Ooh.
to be patient, help me to receive, help me to change, help me to be able to move with you. Because as soon as we don't give it to God and do it with God, we then do it on ourselves. And of course, we're moving on our own, and then we think we're moving with God just
Mm.
because we're praying. Just because we're
Ooh.
praying, that doesn't mean that we're moving with God. Because internally, we're saying, God, I'm waiting for you. But then if it's the case of just because you're waiting, you're still comparing. In the place of you waiting, you're still, you know, neglecting things. In the place of you waiting, you're still trying to do other
Yeah.
things as well. And that means we're not waiting. That's it. It just means that we're trying to just do it on our own.
Mm.
And so God is just like, no more self-sabotage, no more doing it on your own, no more trying to take the steps on your own. You know, I'm here, I've spoken to you, I'm speaking to you, you know, let's do this together. Don't try and be on your high horse. And I believe even in our time of prayer, we have to be able to have that heart to say, yes, Lord, I know what you've said. I believe what you've said. And if there's anything in our minds, whether it's comparison, whether it's pain, whether it's sorrow, like you mentioned earlier, any trauma, whatever, that we could just be like, God, here it is, because I don't want to be in this place making excuses because I didn't really give the whole process to
Mm.
you.
Mm.
Yeah.
So good.
So the benefits of us addressing it is that it brings encouragement,
Mm.
it brings support, as you mentioned as well, focus, strength, and achievement. At the end of it all, as long as the journey may seem, as long as the path may seem, as long as the promise may seem, just like Madam Sarah, you know, the benefit of not taking some actions and dwelling in a place of comfort is that we will see achievement.
Mm.
And so I even wonder that sometimes our achievements prolonged because we were taking
Ooh.
certain actions before we needed to. Have we been self-sabotaging that we've made it about ourselves? So there can't be achievement because the achievement is not about us, it's about God, isn't it? That's giving us a promise, a plan, a
That's
process.
so good.
Mm.
That's so
So we
good.
have to come to that place that to know that as we're addressing it, as much as I myself
Oh,
don't like the term,
yeah,
as
it
much
is
as
a
there's so
handful of a
many
term,
things
yeah,
going on,
a mouthful.
as when I say I don't like the term, I hear the word and I'm like, wow, because there's not just one thing involved.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much
Yeah,
involved that it's important that when we hear it, we can pinpoint
it's
one action
true. That's true.
that we can say, actually,
That's
yes,
true.
from 2 years ago, I do see myself doing this thing. That's why maybe it seems like I haven't achieved the thing that I believe God has said I can achieve.
Mm.
So for those joining us, those that are watching live, if there's anything that comes to your mind about what it means to address self-sabotaging, I'm going to say, I know you mentioned some, so I'm going to say some, and if you can say any, that's fine, which is avoiding challenges,
Mm.
procrastination, any self-doubt, negative self-talk, being disruptive. That means you're quick to always interject, and quick to just act on things. I don't know if there's any other ones you want to add to that about self-sabotage, unless I've said.
I think you shared all, but I don't
Yeah.
know. The one that keeps ringing is this fear of growth and success that keeps
Hmm.
ringing
Okay.
because walking with God is not a walk in the park. It's very,
Hmm.
very, I want to say intense at times. And, you know, as you mentioned, that we are wired to want to see things before we can believe it. And so
Mm.
we automatically rule ourselves out when we can't understand
Yeah.
something and we can't see it. So then
Yeah.
walking with God on top of all of that is like, okay, so he's telling me to go left, but right looks, you know, easier. We always want the
Yeah.
easy way. We always want what we can do from comfort. And walking
Mm.
with God, one thing that I can truly say is it's not gonna be a comfortable walk. It's never been a
No.
comfortable walk. And if it's comfortable, it's because you've allowed for yourself to take the driver's seat and make it comfortable for yourself. So with that, I don't know why it keeps ringing. I think it's for someone,
Yeah.
but you know, growth
Yeah.
of success and no fear
Mm.
of success and
Yeah.
growth. Also
Good. Good.
self-sabotaging. You sabotage yourself out of things you don't understand. Because to you,
Hmm.
it's like,
Hmm.
okay, it's fear of the unknown. It's like anything out of your comfort zone is like, oh, what's this going to look like? How am I going to cope? Am I going to fail? Rejection, you know. Um, there's a lot that comes with it, but I think the strong link between self-sabotage and fear is very strong in a sense of
Yes.
the underlying
Hmm.
theme of self-sabotage, and I want to say it's fear. Because when you
Yes.
sabotage yourself, you're sabotaging yourself from good things. You
Yeah.
sabotage yourself and you get yourself in the way of things that can help you to progress, learn,
Yeah.
build on your skills, meet new
Yeah.
people, take up that promotion. But we're so fast to kind of talk ourselves out of the positives, but we're so quick to allow the negatives to fester. So the positives we
Hmm.
talk ourselves away from it or out of it, and the negatives we
Yeah.
encourage it, you
Yeah.
know.
And I think that's because it's the sin nature in
True.
us. That nature of, as you were mentioning, I don't understand the next. I have not seen it.
Mhm.
So the sin nature in us can only do what it
That's
knows
true.
and what it sees. And the Bible tells us the just shall live by faith. And so for us to be able, even as you're mentioning, the fear, for us to be able to overcome fear is faith. And it
Mhm.
takes faith to be able to say, I can't see it, I've not seen the process, I'm not sure, XYZ, but God, I trust you. And in this time of prayer, keep sharpening me, keep
Mhm.
giving me the patience, keep giving me the power, the wisdom, the
Mhm.
support to ensure that it all comes to pass, because I am a just one and I will live by
So
faith. But as soon as we come into that self-sabotage place, it's the place of sin,
mhm.
it's the place of self, and self is sin really,
Mhm.
because self is not the spirit. Because once we're children of God, we know that we belong to him and not we
So
don't belong
good.
to
Yeah.
ourselves. So it's that thing of, okay, I'm now in my sin nature, because hold on, you know there's that part of me that God has spoken to me. Because let's listen, yeah, when God speaks to us, he speaks to the part of us that has been before we were here. And so, when he says, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb, and he speaks that thing in us, our spirit man that was in him before it came into this flesh. And so when we are talking about the self-sabotage, it's because, all of a sudden, because we've not lived this life before and we've now received something from the Spirit of God that looks so awesome and great. Oh, here comes our flesh trying to puff itself up. Oh, this is what's going to happen now. And then, as you said, even the past traumas and situations and experiences even
So
come to
good.
the surface and be like, oh, okay, are you sure this? How can this be?
Mm,
This is the only thing that has been
mm,
happening when you were here on earth. All those
mm.
past things, that's what you've lived before. You've not lived this other thing before now. So it's that, process of saying, actually, I am here to live by faith. I am here to live by the Spirit of God. I'm not here to live by fear, which is really rooted in my sin nature. And so, because we are again on a journey of salvation, and salvation means deliverance, which is a continuous
Mhm.
thing, then we have to always know that we have to address it when we feel it, when we see it in our lives. We have to be bold enough to address the sin that comes to us. We can't hide behind it and give it a psychological term and say, oh, it's because it's what they call it in the world. Yes, but the world is fallen. So because the world is fallen, that's the only term it can use. But we that are in Christ knows that it's either light or darkness. And so because it's darkness, then therefore it's part of sin. And
Mm,
if there's a nature in me that's entertaining sin, and God is actually saying, but I'm calling you
mm,
to be just,
mm.
I'm calling you to live by faith, then something
So
has to give. Something has to give.
mm.
We can't. It's a tug of war. Paul said,
It
my
is.
spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak. And that's what it is. Your flesh becomes weak when you think, I've not done it before. The flesh becomes weak when it looks bigger than ourselves. And the flesh becomes weak. And so self-sabotaging is really admitting my flesh is weak right now. And if you
Mm.
can't admit that this year, God have real mercy upon us. If people don't want to admit that self-sabotaging is a form of our weakness, and when I am weak, he is strong. When I can admit that I am weak, then I can be strong in him. But if I'm going to try and ignore my weakness and pray it through, then I'm not going to see his strength,
Good.
am I? We're not going to see that strength. And so I felt like God giving me the boldness with this topic, and I'm like, okay, God, as much as it's for me, whoever else it is for, let us go. Because if you want to address something that we want to keep dressing up and saying it's okay, then many will miss whatever it is God is saying that they need to achieve this year. And so I hope that everyone has taken from this session and has been blessed by this session. I don't know if you have any final words, because I will keep going on. I'll keep going, but I know that
Yes.
Ken.
As you were speaking, Romans 12:2 comes to mind about the renewing of your mind, be transformed.
Mhm,
And, when you look at your soul again, your mind, will, and your emotions, so your mind, your will, your emotions, what's in your
mhm,
mind? What are your thoughts? Your will, whose will are you following? And your emotions, are they regulated? Are they under
mm,
control? Because
mm,
self-sabotaging, that word alone and that action of that form of behavior, is looking at your thoughts to start with. Anything
yeah.
that's in your mind, whatever that you think and you allow yourself to dwell on, is what you speak, and what you speak is what you act out. So anytime you're
Mhm,
looking at something like an action like that, that can be so crippling. There's a reason why the word says to be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. So already you know that it's a
yes.
process. It's not just going to
Mhm,
be, I read that scripture on Monday, my mind is renewed, but it's being transformed daily, because God
mhm,
knew that would have all these toxic thoughts. He knew that would go off track. He knew that would try and spoil opportunities that He has for
yeah.
us, so long as we're in the fleshly suit. So I want us to just really to take away as a point, be really intentional about the healthy state of your thoughts. Whose
Mm,
will are you actually following? And how do you regulate and manage your emotions? When you start there, you can see that self-sabotaging fits into this, and that. Because remember, with your
mm,
mind, it hasn't processed a lot of things. And
mhm,
with the soul is something that we don't talk about much, but there's
mhm,
so much, like there's memories, there's emotions, there's
mhm.
feelings. Like I can go somewhere and I can have a memory that, oh yeah, when I was younger, I used to go there with my parents.
Yeah,
Or when I
yeah.
was younger, I used to do that. There's always a memory attached to something. But if you constantly see things from the past and it causes you to be triggered within, that's something you know that you need to go and work on. And it starts with your mental. That's why I'm so much of a big fan when it comes to your mental and your faith. The two
Mm.
align. you know,
Yeah.
your mental health and your faith are very big factors in your life that you need to look at. So yeah, I would say that. And again, just be intentional with God. If you can't be intentional with people around you, be intentional with him. Keep a journal, hear what he's saying,
Yeah.
see what the scriptures are saying. That's a good start.
Yeah.
Then when you get that boldness and that confidence, then you can maybe go to someone, ask for accountability and support. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a loaded topic, but yeah, I hope it
Mhm.
blesses people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you so much for that.
Same.
And yeah, thank you for that. And I think before I go, if there's anyone that has any question or anything they want to also state, please feel free to do so. But I'm going to just share this ebook workbook to come that's combined, and some of the contents you can see is peeking out there in the corner. You know, some things that we've shared is quite brief. What is self-sabotaging, addressing the fears, the benefits, people in the Bible that we mentioned as well, journal activity, self-reflective prompts, there's questions, and each questions have just been broken down into certain focuses, you know, behavior and beliefs, addressing actions, stepping out, and of course setting up support. And with that as well, there is affirm words, some words that you can affirm for yourself. And if you just follow the link, you are able to also purchase it with the link that is displayed on the live, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, or if you are watching on the screen, you can just scan the barcode and the barcode will do the rest for you. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us live today. It's the first time actually being public on social media with it, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us, whether you've started from the beginning or hopped in the middle. Get the ebook and workbook and begin to be intentional about what you are doing this year and how to address any areas that are hidden in the heart. One of the verses we mentioned was, God, search my heart and know my ways, know my thoughts, you know, and if there be any unpleasing way in me, please search it out and show it up. And that is what it is all about, not hiding from God in any way, and not hiding from ourselves, and not even waiting for other people to come and say, oh, do you know what, this. Let us be more aware of things that we may be facing and things that we are going through, so that we can pray more effectively, so that we can plan and do life with God more powerfully. So I hope you were blessed. Thank you once again, everyone, and bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.